So it is my great pleasure to introduce John, not just once, but twice today. John is the Vice President of Chrome operating system at Google. Before Google, John was at HP and Apple. He's joined by two Michaels here, Michael Romatzick. He's the Technical Project Manager and Architect at Middlesex Health. And Michael Urcinoli, he's the Vice President of Business Technology at SoulCycle. So welcome, everyone.
Okay, everyone got their lunch? Yeah? Okay. Welcome to this next session. Hope to have it interactive. So we have some content and we have panel speakers, but we've also got enough time for questions. So please feel free to either interrupt or probably ideally save your questions for when the three of us are chatting at the end, unless you feel compelled, we can be flexible on that as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about how cloud's changing the way we work. And you know, I'm sure you've seen all these studies, and depending on which kind of research source you look at, there's just a huge number of people who are obviously working in remotely, and this is something that is news to you. But what's made it much more possible is the adoption of cloud technologies. It's made it, instead of being something that you need sort of manager approval for, it's become something that IT needs to support and wants to support because the technology is now enabling a new kind of work, a kind of work that can be actually designed to be remote, designed to be on the go, and is not dependent on being local to the servers. And the statistics are astounding, and they're growing all the time about the number of cloud services that an average employee accesses on a daily basis. And for those of you who were in the earlier session, I think I made a point there, and I'll just make it again briefly here, which is we're actually playing catch up in the business world relative to consumer IT, right? Consumer IT actually flipped earlier to cloud-based and always accessing data. And now we can't operate without our maps and without a lot of other functionality that we take for granted. And it's been a bit slower, but the good thing is it's happening and it's changing work. What you may not be as aware of from a data perspective is that how big a role the browser plays in how work gets done. And it's always actually kind of amusing to us is when you ask people what applications they think they use and where they spend their time, you get one set of data. And then if you actually do a survey based on your back-end systems and see what gets touched, how often, it's a little bit different. What you find is actually the predominant amount of time is spent in the browser. And so that has really interesting implications for as you're looking forward to your application strategy, and you're thinking about you're thinking about sort of moving things to the cloud, and you've got these legacy applications, and you're always sort of weighing this thing of like, well, I've got this a little bit of a weight. It's not necessarily a great business case to migrate these applications, but really trying to get a handle on what's the true use of the local applications. And really, we really encourage you. There's some great tools. A lot of our clients use SoftWatch to help them understand what people are really using, and it'll help you have, I think, good planning for the future. I'm not sure where each of you is in a different place on this journey in terms of movement to SaaS, but there's one thing that's no one would deny is that it's sort of definitely going in one direction, and it's just a question of where you are on this line. And as somebody said, the cloud is just you moved your servers to someone else's set of servers. But clearly, this is where it's going. And so not only is it a great opportunity for taking cost out and but it is also a great opportunity to improve the way people work. And that's certainly something that we want to focus on in this conversation is how can this be an improvement to security, an improvement to productivity, and lower cost, all at the same time. That's obviously what you all want to do. And how do you actually make that happen? Goes without saying that these technology changes don't only impact a few number of employees; they impact everyone. And I talked a bit in the previous presentation about Cloud Worker. I want to touch on it a bit again, because I think that a lot of people just, obviously think about just working remotely as having access to email, calendar, and contacts. And any of you involved in mobile transformation or transformation of work will know that that's sort of the first bump in productivity, is when people can just get email and be secure remotely. But the next and the much bigger jump is when you can access your mission-critical applications and do that in a secure way through hardware that you can support independent of platform or whatever platform you've chosen. And that's really where the biggest jump comes in productivity and in employee engagement, is when you're accessing way beyond calendar and contacts, but you're accessing whatever the core applications that drive your business. And whether that's the ERP systems or homegrown systems, cloud enables that in a way that really does change work in another big step. If you look at it through that definition of who's doing real work remotely, a quarter of workers are already doing it. And so this is happening, and I'm sure many of you are experiencing this within your own companies. And what also happens is if you don't provide it, people, as you know, do it themselves through shadow IT. And so it kind of happens if you support it, and it happens if you don't support it. And obviously, you probably rather want to be in front of it and make sure that it's happening in a way that you feel meets the security requirements and just the management requirements that are important for your particular industry. So all workers are becoming cloud workers. The frontline worker is one that, as I talked about earlier, is an underinvested group of worker and punches way above their weight in terms of their ability to impact revenue. The data HBR survey showed just a huge difference in revenue generated per transaction for favorable frontline worker, about 2.4x. Favorable frontline worker engagement versus unfavorable was a 2.4x revenue per transaction. We can debate about what the exact number is, but I think it's sort of intuitive if you think of your own personal life, and when you engage with anyone who's client-facing, be it at a bank, be it an Uber driver, or any environment where the nature of that experience ultimately drives so much of how you feel about the brand and your engagement with that company and what you purchase from them. And the frontline worker doesn't have to be somebody who deals directly with customers. They can also be someone who deals directly with the machine interface, but is on the front line of the process. And they have tremendous knowledge. And I think that IT has viewed them all too much as sort of the last people. So they tend to have laggard technology. And it's the information workers that always get the cool new stuff. And I think that obviously information workers need that too, but I think frontline work is an area that's just a huge gap, and with cloud, a huge opportunity to do more. So these are facts you know well, but just to put some stats around it. These are the top of mind issues for all of us in IT. And they're complex problems that we have to live with. They're not problems that one can make go away. But they are actually extremely good technologies to certainly reduce risk. And I think that we should all be scholars of the best technologies for reduced risk. I'll just give you a piece of information from inside of Google. Google moved in 2017 to a physical two-factor authentication with what we call a nubby, just little USB-C touch device. And so when you're logging in, you just get prompted to touch the nubby. Our phishing attacks went to 0 from 2017, successful phishing attacks, and have not had one since then. This is available technology, remarkably low tech, the good old physical touch, that has had a material impact for a 100,000 person company in terms of a major surface area for threat. So there's a lot that we can talk about and one can and should do around security. If you look at traditional desktop clients, the legacy model is very poor. Is a very poor security model. As sort of demonstrated by this diagram here, this model doesn't work in today's threat environments. And in the mobile world, you've seen a much better model than this, where the leading operating systems in mobile, whether it's iOS, Android, you're not looking at this time-based process. You have a situation where if there's any kind of threat that is identified, you have immediate updates to the operating system. The desktop world has lagged this in a big way, and that's just not acceptable. And the fact is that most desktops are quote mobile. When I mean to say desktop, I'm really referring to laptops mostly. So we have this legacy model, which is really probably certainly from most of the operating systems out there, is lagging a modern architecture. With a cloud-native endpoint, you can do much more innovative things. You can do the things that I talked about earlier for the employee, which is access to enterprise applications, real-time access to data. But then you can have hardware with a modern cloud-based operating system like Chrome that is managed, built, and run like a mobile device. So with Chrome operating system, you have an operating system that is designed from the ground up to be secure. And you never face a situation of the legacy operating system where you have X number of your installed bases on the 2007 version and the other 30% on 2008, and yes, we're moving to the number 10, and this complexity is crazy, right? And it's just so prone to access. So the great opportunity in front of us is to be able to bring enterprise-grade security, designed from the ground up for the cloud, and do that in a variety of form factors. So whether it's detachables, convertibles, regular clamshells, and have comprehensive AI-driven threat protection that has. What Google's developed is a set of policies. We have 200 policies in a management console that are by default set to the most common set of defaults that we see IT administrators deploying. And then the 30 most used ones are surfaced for the IT administrator when they first deploy Chrome to maybe make changes they might want around their particular environments. But you have 200 knobs to play with to manage your environment. So it's very granular and allows for compliance at different levels of access, right, for different workers, different classes of workers, so that you can really, in a granular fashion, manage access to data and your policies internally. And Chrome has a really interesting, and I'm not sure how many are familiar with this, updating system. So any Chromebook running, like this one running here, actually has 2 operating systems on it. It has the current version of Chrome, and it has the previous one. So whenever you do an update, you always have a partition with two operating systems. And so we're able to do an operating system update in less than 30 seconds. Right? It's almost imperceptible to the user. You get prompted to do an update. Average time is around 12 seconds. Highest you can get to is in the 20s. And we do that because we built it with 2 operating systems designed into it. So we designed it knowing that you would need to continually update the operating system. And we push a new operating system update every 6 weeks. And you can't, and then we also thought about the needs of enterprises to be able to pin an update while they made an improvement to an application. So it allows you as an administrator for a finite amount of time to pin the current update and delay that. So we've spent about a time thinking about if you as a company want to deploy Chrome, how would you do that? And like, who would be the right users? Because clearly it's not for everyone. Like, you're not going to go to your legal department and say, you folks should start using ChromeOS. They're going to want to have the redlining capability of Microsoft. But you may want to go to your field service group. You may want to go to a sales team. So we've done a lot of work looking at the segments of the workforce that could most benefit from a cloud-based architecture and who don't feel a takeaway in terms of some key thing that they need to get done. So we spent a lot of time on that and would happy to share that with you. We have a workflow, though, identifying a set of users that will benefit most from the collaboration tools, the access to data. There may be legacy apps that they'd still need to use occasionally. So we have recommended VDI solutions for access to those. And then building a small cohort of employees who become champions for that technology and who feel like it works really well for them and using them to drive change. Moving to this kind of technology is actually as much about change management and culture as it is about a technology change. And so our learnings are with clients is the most successful deployments are ones where there's really a strong advocacy internally for the benefits, and that you get people who really feel the benefits, see the benefits, doesn't get shoved top down. That we've actually seen some companies try to drive it tops down, and it hasn't gone nearly as well.
SoulCycle for me is about empowering the writer as a person. It becomes that moment that is really, truly yours. You can celebrate yourself, maybe question yourself. The lights are dark, there's music playing in the background, it's candle lit, it's 45 minutes. It's an intense ride.
At SoulCycle, when we're building technology, we always say start with the writer. How does this technology benefit the writer and benefit the experience that they're going to have?
You don't traditionally think of SoulCycle as a tech company, but at its core, everything that we do is powered by tech. What we care the most about is that our writers are engaging with us and that the software that we're building allows them to do that. Google Cloud allows us to focus more on application and software development than on managing our infrastructure. It's a huge deal.
I love the fact that some of the groundwork has been done for me to the point where I get to focus on the things that I really need to. How do I elevate a studio experience? How do I make a writer's ride better? One of the big changes that we're working on right now is mobilizing our front desk. We're rolling out a few studios where we've got Pixelbooks running all the interactions, from booking a writer's first ride, managing a wait list, helping someone buying some SoulCycle clothing. That allows you to increase that interaction with a rider.
Building our corporate partnerships function of the business on GCP is one of our first major initiatives that will be rider-facing. We're automating not only the sign-up process, but the management of rides that are purchased and also the follow-up.
Our 3-person team was spending all of their time booking bikes manually by hand, and we decided that it would make a lot more sense to build a tool that will allow the corporate partners to do that themselves.
Now, with GCP, our salespeople can work on developing the relationships with their existing clients and new clients and not focused on manual data entry. That's been a big benefit for us.
The way that I want to make technology work here at SoulCycle is to make it transparent as much as possible and make a SoulCycle studio a sanctuary for you. Let's focus on the people first.
Just like we're thinking about our riders all the time, Google is thinking about their customers. We trust that they're going to be building the products and services that will benefit us in the future, and that leaves us to focus on the products and services that benefit our riders. That's where we win.
Sorry, I didn't do proper introductions. I should have introduced Mike for that. So Mike is here, and I'd encourage you to ask him questions later on, like what worked well and also what didn't. You could get the straight scoop from Mike on that. Mike?
Yeah.
Hand over to you. Yep.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coolest intro. I don't have such a nice video for myself. So.
Yeah. So actually, I'm a stand and talk person. So I guess before the video started, anyone here know what SoulCycle was before that? Show of hands. Good. Great. Well, even better. Wonderful. And what about knowledge of Chrome devices before this? Okay, wonderful. Talking to the right people. So, it's not in presentation mode. All right, so then I will go through.
Screw you up.
I appreciate the full screen that you went, so that, So brief history on SoulCycle. We opened in 2006, but we weren't big or the SoulCycle that you know until about 2013. And right after that, I had joined the company. We have currently 92 studios across the US and Canada. That's coast to coast, New York to San Francisco, Chicago to Houston. And we have 3 in Canada. 2 weeks from now, we're opening up our first international location in London. And then subsequently following, we're going to do a London takeover. So if we're having this same talk next year, we'll have over 100 locations. At that point, probably 15 of them being international. Each studio does 7 to 8 classes per day. If you don't have a concept of what a SoulCycle class is, the best way I could describe it is it's a live performance. You're paying your money to go and be part of this show, be part of this community. So that's how we try and view it from a technology standpoint as well, is live performance technology. This number is now a little bit older, so we have about 2,500 studio staff now and over 500 computers. So just to briefly touch on those studio staff employees, because we hear a lot about how do you drive adoption with your user base, right? Think about the SoulCycle majority user base. That represents most of the people that work for our company. They're geographically dispersed. They do not have a concept of HQ or corporate, however you want to brand your home base. They're part-time. They're in college. They're actors or actresses. They're not being motivated to care that much about the vision you're showing, right? You have to make their lives easier so that they could do well at their jobs. The first studio is going to be opening up in June in the UK. And we'll touch base on why that's important about the user base. So as I said in the video you saw, we start with the rider. So for those of you familiar with SoulCycle, SoulCycle does not put technology in your face front of house. We view it as it's a different type of challenge to have the rider being supported by technology in the background so it's seamless. There's a tremendous amount of technology in the background making it so that you're not interfacing with technology all the time. So it's just an interesting approach of how we do it. From the business side, we are a business. How does this ladder up to our long-term strategy? How is this going to contribute to our bottom lines in the future? And from the tech side, we like to think like a tech company, even though we're not a tech company. So we start with, can we build it ourselves? Is there something here that if we did it and did it differently, it would now be like a core tenet of our competitive advantage versus competitors and other people in our space and different spaces? what's the current benchmark and how can we beat it? That goes with, can we build it ourselves? Do we need to? Do we have to? What kind of resources will require to launch and support? SoulCycle is a growing business, but we try and act super thoughtful about what long-term resources are we committing to this. So if we build and launch this new technology, who's going to support it? What does that look like? A big part of this is who should we partner with? We're small but mighty. We like to think that we have great ideas, but we need help on the execution side, the strategy side, so we'll talk about that as well. And then at the end of the day, it's SoulCycle, so it has to be cool. We just don't do boring stuff. That's a part of our brand. It's exciting. You're coming to SoulCycle to be part of a live show, to see this incredible performance happen and get a great workout. Our technology has to ladder up to that. So in the talk that we talked about, in the video, we were talking about that we were starting to pilot some Google Pixelbooks in some of our locations. Well, as of 2 weeks ago, our entire US fleet is Pixelbooks. It's our official front of house machine for SoulCycle. So we filmed that video late last year, but our rollout time was actually to do our entire ecosystem start to finish. We started in January and we're done now. And why ChromeOS was a big deal. So we were already standardized on the Chrome browser. So our custom code, our custom applications that we had already built were already being built and tested against the Chrome browser as our main browser function. So we said, okay, well that's the main, like the 90% use case of SoulCycle is this one application that everything runs on in the field. Let's look at everything else. Let's look at the 10%. And this is where a lot of what John was saying is modernizing the work processes. So we sat with our business owners and we said, okay, show us again, how do you do your job? We think we know, we like to think we know, but do we really sometimes? And are we looking at it with fresh eyes? So we went through all of our work processes about how all of our HQ departments were working with our field. And we were saying, and we were not only observing, but we were challenging why things were being done a certain way. For a high-level example, our finance team was sending our daily finance reports to the studios in Excel for years. It was just done like this for years. No one questioned it. It was never a priority. But during this project, we said, well, what if the studios didn't have that anymore? What would that look like? So we sat with finance and finance said, well, actually, this is just a visual. It's just a quick reference sheet for them. We just did it in Excel because that's all we knew. So we said, great. This could be a JPEG. There's no data entry into this. We could modernize this workflow. Then the selfish side, the tech side on the other side, reducing our IT overhead, simplifying our infrastructure, and streamlining our vendors. When I was it 2016, we're looking at our yearly tech budget, right? And we're every year it's grown and grown and grown. We kept adding lines and lines and lines and lines and vendors. And then I was talking about this yesterday was if you go through the postmortems of all of these security breaches and all the things that are happening in the world, everyone's saying oh, well, we had this one thing that, some person had to do, and we don't really pay a lot of attention to it. So that was a breaking point for me, was we needed to streamline our vendors, work with vendors that had a big domain ownership of stuff that we didn't need to oversee anymore. So our field is now on the Pixelbooks, and now let's talk about HQ, our corporate offices. We have a main corporate office in the West Village of New York, and we have a satellite office in LA. So we have it as an officially supported device. If you are a manager and you have a new hire and you want to, and you're doing your onboarding form for your person, the Pixelbook is right there with all of the other devices that you probably deploy in your own organizations. We also have an opt-in try before you buy. We are obviously on G Suite, so getting set up onto a Pixelbook is as easy as logging in for us. All of our default policies and all of that stuff is right out of the box. We have a lot of adoption right now among our mobile-centric teams. So we have a pretty large field leadership team, our instructor programming team, our bike operations team who are in charge of our fleet maintenance, and our facilities team. They've had a lot of adoption onto this because all of the things that they use are cloud-enabled. our power users, so our developers are, let's call it mostly developers and engineers and IT people, are using it as a primary or secondary device. Developers right now more on the secondary device as like a mobile device. But that's for now. We don't see that as a forever thing. So with our adoption among mobile-centric teams, like I was saying earlier, modernizing business processes and moving away from desktop applications and more towards cloud-enabled or browser-based processes is an unlock for the company. You can work from anywhere. You can do your job from anywhere. You're not, oh, the VPN didn't work. Guess I'm not, working today, or I have to, put in a ticket with IT. They got to reboot a server somewhere. That impacts your bottom and top line, and also your employee experience of what your employee experience is like to work with technology. Did it not? There it goes. OK, so with the studio, the business problem we were facing was our ecosystem of computers were getting old. We hadn't made a concerted effort to do lifecycle management. We basically said, let's wait and kind of see what comes. Let's not jump on just replacing a machine because it hit its 5-year shelf life. Let's push the limit a little bit. We wanted to find a centralized suite to reduce administrative overhead and prepare for technology innovation, find opportunities for new interactions with our consumers, and also maintain PCI compliance. So SoulCycle, if you're not familiar with our business model, we are not a membership. You have to pay every time you want to come to us, which gives us an incredibly high transaction volume, that's a lot of unwanted attention from regulations and things like that. So we have a lot of focus there. So this is how we did it and the rules of how we did it. So to upgrade every studio, these are retail point-of-sale machines. There's things and stuff and cables and legacy has to be done in between 2 and 3 hours. We do that because there's a break in the middle of our day. We do morning classes, we do evening classes. So the studio staff would run the business on their legacy computers for their morning check-in, and their evening check-in was an entirely new ecosystem of hardware. Everything soup to nuts. Everything looked different. And we did this with one person per location in charge of redoing all of this stuff. And the new technology must be easy to use. That's because imagine starting and ending your day on different platforms. It's insane, but I promise you it's possible. Great. So kind of touched on this in some of my talking already, but I do want to touch a little more onto the PCI aspect of this. The G Suite realm of tools and the Chrome Enterprise realm of tools, what John was talking about, the 200 plus policies that exist, there's not like a make PCI work button, right? You have to think about, okay, I used to do things this way. Now how from this new ecosystem of options and checkboxes can I replace other things? And we'll talk a little bit more about that after that. So this is SoulCycle Las Vegas. SoulCycle Las Vegas opened with Pixelbooks. It's a flagship studio for us. It's our, in terms of like our total tech investment, it's our most expensive studio. It has nothing to do with the Pixelbooks, just we did a lot more stuff in the room here. And that's our front desk. So the little silver boxes or Pixelbooks on the front, those are the check-in devices where people come in and say, hey, I'm here. We do that. And then on the right-hand side, you can see some screens. Those are our digital waivers. So we have all of our legal documents and our waivers in there. You could use the touchscreen sign it off. Now, you might be saying, like, I've been in a retail store. Where's all your stuff? It's in the cloud. It's not there. It's gone. That's really all it is. We modernized our business processes. Our credit card processing, we're saving cards on file now. We have a relationship with our riders, so that's not a thing that has to happen. We email receipts. We don't need to print them out in our use case anymore. So we went through all this stuff and just kind of reinforced that this is the direction we're going, and this is kind of the outcome that we can get out of it. So some key takeaways from us is everything that John was saying earlier is what we experienced. So the garnering excitement, this is the area where John was talking about we're piloting with test groups and small users. So when we started this journey and trying to figure out if ChromeOS was right for us, from the tech side, we knew it was good. But from the business culture side, we knew we needed to get momentum. So we put the devices into the hands of people that you would associate with momentum. So we gave it to high performers. We gave it to long tenured employees, people in big job roles or responsibilities, people that other people looked up to, so that if you were in a meeting with them and they were on a different device, you noticed it. Non-tech, you still notice it. You're like, wait, what is that? And it sparked a conversation. So we gave training and development and tools to those high-performing employees and said, just spread the word. Let's just see how this goes. And then we worked with a specific team, our marketing team, to say, okay, we need this close to home. Let's work with you guys first to understand how we need to adopt our business. Then we worked with our West Village studio, which is the closest one to our HQ, to see what it would be like there. Then we just kept iterating and iterating and iterating, and that ladders up to invest in time. Our deployment was super quick because our prep time beforehand was long. You're not just changing the device that the ends of the cables plugs into. You're changing how people work. You're changing a large portion of their day. So investing in time and building the collateral and the assets. I never thought that we would actually have to a vendor selection process for Chrome for us was to find a director. We literally made in-house videos and movies to show people what it would be like to have a day in the life. Why the decisions were going this way, what the future of our business and our retail locations were going to look like. And then the only way to get that out to our employees was through videos. And we probably made a series of 15 short-form 3-minute videos to kind of educate our people of how to do that. And then the last part is get partners involved early. So when we had the idea of ChromeOS, we had the luxury of being able to talk to Google and say, hey, we want to start this project. And they brought out a whole bunch of people to come help us and educate us on ChromeOS. But we also said on the other side, we have this PCI compliance, we have these securities committees that we have to abide by. We have to make sure everything's handling really well. So we actually think they're in the room right now. We have partnered with RSM. They're back there somewhere. So yep, they're a partner for this event as well. So RSM took us through all of the traditional IT controls and how we would apply our Pixelbooks to those IT controls to make sure that at the end of the year, everyone's satisfied, all the auditors are happy, everyone's going to be, every box was checked, no one can say you didn't think of this. And that is the long and short of how we did it.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to hand it off to Mike Romatzick now.
Thank you, sir. We're going to start off with another little short video of one of our use cases.
We respond to approximately 10,000 911 calls a year. Instead of having to wait until the call is complete, we can get started immediately with a Chromebook.
The technology for us has to be patient-centric. To operate in the Chrome environment with no learning curve has been a huge advantage for us.
Healthcare IT is undergoing a bit of a shift for the last 15, 20 years. No longer do you have a $3,000 PC that was for a specific use case. Our on-call doctors, our EMS, they are roaming workers. The ability to easily hand off one device to multiple people without leaving a footprint of what they were working on or where they've been. It allows a great deal of flexibility.
What we're doing is bringing the emergency department to the patient. So our technology is critical. We've had 0 failures with the Chromebooks. When they open, they're on and they're ready to go. They definitely give us a better level of confidence when we're out in the field.
Google Cloud and Chrome provides us an opportunity to bring a modern, secure platform into the healthcare arena. And the Chrome integration with Citrix allows us to access our legacy applications. What Google is allowing us to do is put the focus back on our patients.
Okay, so that was one of our flagship use cases over our journey of Chrome over the last 4 years or so. The biggest part of this was we didn't necessarily start out in this direction. We came to the table, unsure of what we can do with the platform. looking for a little bit of help. Whoop, I'm sorry. And I failed the full screen test. So the other part of this is, we started out very small scale. We started out in a way that a lot of organizations do, unsure about what to do with the platform initially, and also really where to start and who to reach out to. In healthcare, like many other organizations, you're subject to the requirements of vendors, regulations, and a lot of governing bodies that kind of dictate a lot of the equipment that is in your environment. Whether it's in our primary facility that has our emergency departments and inpatient care, our primary care and family practice and behavioral health organizations. There's a lot of different use cases, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out where to start. So when you're first starting out, you're looking at your existing model, and you're looking at your standard Microsoft platform and the layers that go into the deployment and all the lifecycle management of that. And some of the biggest challenges are really built on those requirements of those layers of getting first your bare bones hardware, your encryption, your antivirus, building your image, and deploying your application. You'll have hours into each PC, and as anyone knows, no matter how good your image is, there's a degree of variance as soon as it goes out the door. So some PCs ends up coming right back, whether it's 5 or 500. One of the biggest parts that we went through with Chrome was trying to optimize this process and really develop a new strategy for devices going out. So in reality, it was Google kind of challenging us to rethink how we handle IT in healthcare. Now, some of the initial use cases that we identified, as you saw, the EMS workers, our education and training, roaming staff, and our loaners. Now, these use cases were pretty well focused, and what we tried to really dial in was the bare bones of what someone needed to be productive. And in general, the vast majority of PCs that are out on your network have way more than they need. They don't, and it really comes down to it, need more than those 2-3 apps for a lot of your productivity, cloud workers, and anyone that roams around or even just works directly with the medical record. And really and truly, the base of this was when you first start out on a new platform, convincing management that you need additional resources to spin up, deploy, and support a new platform is difficult. And that's where Chrome shined as well. And a lot of these pieces were really coming together into something that could be done in spare time. Use cases of dozens or even over 150 Chromebooks that we initially started with were done as a side to my existing duties with managing our Citrix environment and several other areas. The overhead to get this off the ground is incredibly low. And when you start looking at some of the practices to automate, build, and deploy, we got into what we called our red vest deployment, which was our volunteers around the hospital. And 3 or 4 minutes out of the box with an unskilled worker, we were deploying books, and they weren't coming back. Our EMS workers were a big source of pain point on calls. When you're dealing with first responders, failures matter. If they can't get into the medical record, if they can't use the tool that they need in the field, you got a major problem. And frankly, it's a group that's rarely messed with. You'll see the tough books, you see Windows, you see all the different pieces that are out there. We threw it all out the window. They have a cloud-based medical record. We're a G Suite customer, and we realized their base workflow had nothing to do with all of this. They shouldn't have to care that someone might be helping out from another organization and, they didn't log into the Windows computer before it got taken off site. These guys are off the domain all the time, constantly having problems when we were first going after them. And this use case we built out in 2016 basically over lunch. This was an idle discussion about how we can fix this problem and how we can stop these calls coming in and how to stop people from getting frustrated in the field. The call stopped. It wasn't like, we had this question, that question. We put them back into an environment they know with G Suite. We deployed a wireless profile to them. We managed the security and the updates through the cloud. The books didn't have to come back. And, they're still out there today. And we're still one call in, and it wasn't really a problem. They just let us know that they finally destroyed one. And when you're looking at a $3,500 device, and we sent them out there with $220 education edition devices made for 10-year-olds. And those rubberized base bone versions were more durable than any tough book they went out for $4,000. So, as you saw in the video, heavy use on that. And a little over 12.5 devices for that particular use case. This is something that it's hard to describe the numbers when you start looking at a $4,000 to $5,000 sunk cost between chargers, extended warranty, downtimes, and use case issues, and you drop it down to sub $400 with a device and a management license, and close the book on it. It's taken more time right now to talk about it and to watch that video than it is to set it up in the console. This is an incredibly easy and powerful tool to use. The other big piece we moved on to was our trainers. Oftentimes, if anyone has training facilities, PCs sit idle. They get used for testing by your IT department. There's a lot of different issues that pop up of computers that aren't used day to day. Oh, we find out that room hasn't been spun up in 2 or 3 days, a bunch of updates are pending, and impacts the class, and you're stuck in the room. No one likes being stuck anywhere. Big part of this was trying to make it more flexible, trying to take them out of the environment that they were having trouble with, and provide them the ability to, we threw it all in a cart. We even synced up Bluetooth scanners for them to do barcoding and testing throughout the hospital in real live patient areas. Our use case now goes from not just sitting in an open room, but the nurse educators taking the 10 med students up to the floor. They stop by IT, they sign out the books from the cube, off they go. They open up to a public session, and we even have a auto-published app for our medical record for them that 10 to 12 seconds after opening that book, they're in, they're productive, and they're working up on the floors. And secondary to that is another huge leverage point on the public sessions is these public devices, they wipe themselves out with a simple configuration. You close the lid, it times out, you exit that session, boom, you were never there. IT security is completely on board with this. This is the simplest way to get through an audit. When we've had one of these supposedly stolen, we provided them the trail of the book use, we showed the policies, auditor was gone in an hour. Like, these are huge time sinks that you can get sucked into with public devices that get used throughout an organization. Any of you that have been caught up in this, to prove the audit trail of a device, to show how it was configured and guarantee that nothing was on the storage, that is a huge, huge win. And then you can do it for 1 or 1,000 devices. The other part that where training really shines crosses over into a lot of the wins that Google has had in education. There's plenty of tools for an education class where you can take a simple app as a professor, have it loaded up in admin console and distributed to the individual devices for the end users, see and manipulate their screens, provide content, and also get rid of that excuse of, oh, I had to wait for my computer to boot up, so they're not paying attention to you. Those books stay shut until the content is actually needing to be interacted with, and then they shut the books again. You can deliver that guided experience, and you could do it dynamically and push content out to individuals. So one of the big lessons learned in this arena is really just to start. This literally started out with 4 years ago and 2 Chromebooks dumped on my desk. This was my first job in healthcare and the first time I touched a Chromebook. And they said, see how far we can get, budget's tight this year. And off we went. The first 150, we rolled through, and again, with no resources being taken from our support center, my cell phone number went out with all first 250 to 300 devices. I deployed, configured, supported, and updated these devices as a side project, kind of just during lunch or during long conference calls. This is not something that breaks the bank to get started. This is idle work, and the support overhead drops off to nothing. It's incredible. Our on-call people, where you have a doctor that got paged at 2 in the morning, and that notebook that they took home that was $1,500 sat in a drawer in their office for a month and a half. It's off the domain. It can't boot. They're pissed because they got woken up. That call doesn't happen anymore. These are solvable problems. We ripped all of the remote ones out and deployed in every situation that we can possibly move into. It's been an incredible couple of years, particularly with momentum that's been built on the platform. Originally, we were trying to understand a tool that was being adapted to enterprise, and resources kept pouring in and looking for feedback. And when we asked for features, we started being able to talk to direct Google representation. And they were building them, and they were looking for more feedback to build even more features. This is not a closed system. This is a platform that is making you a part of it. This is bringing you and your industry into it, not just making you use a tool that they built. So it's something that you really need to just take a look at it, talk to really anybody that, whether it be your sales team, your distributor, and just get after it, because it's a lot quicker and simpler than it seems. So, thank you.
So now we just have a few minutes left, and if anyone have questions for me or for two Michaels, happy to take those.
Yeah. Okay. What's Google's position on if you can't migrate an app, legacy app, to ChromeOS, if you were to go to Google Cloud hosting? So how does that work in trying to integrate with this type of environment?
So I mean, I think your options are PWAs, so web app, build a web app, or host, or you're going to need to use a VDI solution, have it hosted somewhere.
Can either of you guys do that?
We had a lot of legacy Citrix apps, which was one of the first things I got saddled with when I came on board. So building out a lot of Citrix kiosks was huge. We didn't necessarily move some of these apps to the cloud because of the nature of the interface and the data, but that is something we're actually pursuing.
Do you think about Google Cloud for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same for us. We're not at the point yet where we have to, there's legacy applications that need to be virtualized, but that's how we're thinking about more HQ adoption with some tools and features that HQ teams might need. John was referencing the legal team and requirements for redlining and stuff. So probably still yet to come on that.
But I want to add, there's nothing unique to, in this particular, if you're going to virtualize, it can be to whatever cloud you're using, right? It's not there's nothing that Chromebooks rely on GCP for. There was a question here somewhere? Yeah? Go ahead.
Yeah, a question for you, John. One of the things Google also does in attacking the future of work is the hardware. So, for example, I think Google Glass was a big success for workers. ChromeOS works on Pixelbooks. Is there a roadmap for expanding that to future generations of mobile devices or even the Pixel phone?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll say two things. One is we're a platform first, and then we have our own first-party products, and we're really agnostic in how we look at it. It's like we use our first-party products to some extent to show the industry what's possible and build like really great product that we want others to build as well. But what we apply exactly the same engineering kind of criteria to the ecosystem. So if a HP or a Dell or whatever build a Chromebook, it has to be, the design has to be approved by Google. In fact, it's a reference design that's done by Google, and they provide essentially the shell, and they take the go-to-market assets to do it. And so there's no quality difference between an OEM product and a first-party product. But we will continue to push the envelope on new form factors. And obviously we have our Pixel phones. We have other products that are currently more home-oriented, but we have, we're looking at IoT applications. So we are looking at a lot more things, but nothing that I can really talk about at this point. But yeah, stay tuned.
We're out of time. Let's give a round of applause to John and Mike and Max.